All right, everybody. It is December 3rd. Happy new month. Happy December. Holiday season is here in the U.S. A couple general announcements. We have Dragon t-shirts and hoodies. If you guys would like to make a donation to Backdrop CMS, for $25, we'll send you an adorable white Dragon t-shirt, or for $50, we'll send you a warm and cozy gray Dragon hoodie. I think everybody I'm talking to right now already has one or both. But anyone who's watching the video later wants to get warm and cozy, we've got Dragon Loot. So you can go to backdropcms.org/contribute and make a contribution, and we'll send you a happy little thank you gift. We also have free PHP Storm licenses for Backdrop Contrib developers. I think we should reach out and contact the PHP Storm folks about getting a new set of licenses for 2016. Since we've only got a couple months left on the old ones, it seems silly to keep handing those out. I think they'd be open to that. So.
Yeah, they've also changed the way the licensing works, where previously they were kind of like perpetual licenses, but now like you could keep using the license even after it had expired, as long as you'd already downloaded the software. And they changed it to some kind of subscription model where they're attached to your like JetBrains account or something like that. So the situation might change in the future. We might need to start over kind of with our licensing efforts with those guys.
Okay. Well, it'd be good to talk to them anyway, and then we can try and figure it out.
Yeah, but you're right. Our license comes to an end here really pretty soon. Like, is it this month? This month? February. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We have no updates from the PMC this week, but Nate will give you some exciting updates on community growth.
Yeah, so apparently, I wasn't around last week. No one was around last week because it was Thanksgiving. That explains why it's been so long. And then prior to that, I was at a conference. So we haven't had any numbers on community growth in a little while.
I did update them the week you were out.
Oh, okay.
So last week.
Okay, of course. So since we had an extra week in there, we've got some really great numbers. We have 175 total projects for backdropcms.org in the Backdrop Contrib group on GitHub. That's 14 new projects since 2 weeks ago. That's really exciting. Some things like field permissions, coffee, which is kind of like an Alfred-like jumping thing, auto node title, better formats, a bunch of really great important modules that aren't maybe top 50 or maybe even top 100 modules, but still just really great projects to have in the Backdrop ecosystem have all been coming over. So that's been really exciting to see those, seeing those new projects on GitHub. So in addition to those projects that are on GitHub, we also keep track of projects that have made official releases and therefore synchronize over on backdropcms.org. And there are 108 total projects with official releases, basically saying these things are ready for production environments on backdropcms.org. And that's 6 new official projects since 2 weeks ago. There are also 138 total releases on Backdrop CMS. That's 10 total new releases. And the difference there basically being releases are constant, like they keep coming out even for existing projects. And of course, new projects, they only go up once. But once a project has been released, it can keep getting releases. And so a steady stream of new releases means a steady stream of bug fixes and new features on our existing modules. So that's great to see as well. We only have, I shouldn't say only, we've got 42 total authors that are in the Backdrop Contrib group. That's been pretty constant for a couple of weeks now. But if you would like to join the Backdrop Contrib group, we would love to have your assistance. And you can do that by visiting github.com/backdrop-ops, as in operations, /contrib. And that's our issue queue for basically reviewing projects that are thinking about moving themselves over into the Backdrop Contrib group. Even if you haven't started a module, if you're just thinking about starting a module, it's a good idea to post over there saying, hey, I'm thinking about porting this module, and we would love to give you feedback on if we think that's a great idea or what we can do to help.
Idea.
Yeah, it's always a great idea, but what we can do to help. And so we can go through, how to go through that process if you just post an issue, and we would be happy to help.
Also, I have a bunch of modules that I've ported that have in the maintainer section, it's got my name, but then it says seeking additional maintainers. And I've had a couple people be interested in being the maintainers on those modules, which would be great. Some of them are the original authors of the Drupal modules, and some of them are just people that are like, I use that module all the time, I'll be a maintainer. And so if you're interested in joining the Backdrop Contrib group and haven't actually ported a module yourself, that's still fine. We have a process for that that says that you just need to be like vouched for by the person who you're going to be working with on that project. So like if I want to bring on a co-maintainer for one of my modules, co-maintainer submits an application and I say, this person's my co-maintainer, I need them, and then we grant them permission. So you don't have to have a project before you get admitted. You just need to have communicated with the person you're going to be working with and make sure you're all on the same page about what's going on. So I'm running into that more and more where I go to the Drupal issue queue and go, I'm going to be using this module on a Backdrop site. Dear Drupal author, are you interested in supporting it? And they go, well, I'm interested, but I don't have time to do the port right now. And I'm like, no problem, I'm doing the port. Let me know when you're ready, and then we can invite them in. And I think that, you know, as we go forward, we're going to start getting these people coming over going, okay, let me see what's going on over here. And I think it would be great to be able to let them in just with that vouch process rather than having to say, you have to port the module all over again, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's see. So our next item on the agenda is infrastructure, things that are around Backdrop, the project that isn't the software itself. And the first item on this list is update checking. That is the coordination between update module that is in Backdrop core and backdropcms.org. We still have this long-standing problem where we're collecting analytics of what sites are out there and what modules they have running, or what projects they have running more accurately. But the analytics for number crunching those into actual charts or into tables is not functioning quite correctly. So we had this issue for a little while where it was just zeroing everything out, so we lost a bit of data for a month or so there. And since then, we turned back off the number crunching scripts, and now we're just accruing all of these raw numbers again. But we need some help making it so that those numbers actually turn into something useful. So that's an issue that is actually in project module itself. It's issue number 9 in the Backdrop Contrib project module. And if you would like to help on that, we can help facilitate it by getting you database dumps of all of the raw numbers that we have for backdropcms.org, because actually accruing a large base of numbers from external websites can be kind of difficult for a localhost setup. Let's see. Some of the things we're hoping to do after we get the basics done is that we want to start tracking not just which projects are downloaded and enabled, but more specific things like which individual modules are turned on, say within core or within a particular project. And also things like which options are enabled on particular sites, like how many sites support clean URLs, or how many sites. I'm trying to think of other things that would be non-intrusive, because we definitely want to make sure that all of these options, they should be thought about and discussed before we start collecting them, because we definitely don't want to have anything that's identifiable or cause a privacy concern, because then people are just going to turn off the module in the first place, and that's not what we want. Let's see, after we get the analytics data crunching, we want to add charts to the project pages on backdropcms.org, and that's issue 98 in the backdropcms.org issue queue. That's kind of a nice to have. Really, the number one priority here is definitely fixing that number crunching script. Let's see, Project Browser.
Hey, Nate.
Hey. Is that
Mike?
Hey, Mike.
So when what data are we saving about the sites that are reporting or looking for updates?
Right now, we don't save anything about those sites. The only thing that we save is they report the names of the projects that they are currently running and the versions of those projects. So, like if you download the 3.4 version of WebForm, then we are told that you're running the WebForm project version 3.4,
okay.
And that's really bad.
What identifying information are we storing in order to know which ones are reporting in, so we don't count them more than once every time they report in? So
I think what I'm gonna have to check, but I think what we use is when you install Backdrop, each site is assigned a private key. And then we generate a hash off of that, and so each site has a unique identifier that it uses with an update module that's generated off the private key.
Okay, that sounds good. So there shouldn't be much in the way of privacy concerns with people since there's no personally identifiable information being stored.
Yeah, and it's better than using IP addresses because there could be a lot of sites on the same IP address, but they all have different unique hashes. So so it's pretty good overall. Cool. Let's see. Okay, so Project Browser. So a feature that we'd love to have in the near future, I'm not sure it's going to happen in 1.3 because that's just about a month away, honestly. We'd like to make it so that people can find and install modules and themes from within Backdrop without needing to visit backdropcms.org or GitHub or anywhere else. And so there's this project that we've ported and expanded called Project Browser that is a module that you can install inside of your Backdrop website. And it uses the existing Backdrop facility for installing modules, themes, and layouts, which already exists and already works. And it just adds an interface on top of it that lets you actually find projects from backdropcms.org directly rather than needing to go and find a URL to a zip file. So Project Browser has actually been working really great for a while, but Project Browser Server, the component that lives on backdropcms.org, has been a little bit buggy. We've got issue number 870 that is kind of the master issue for Project Browser. We applied a fix that we thought maybe would fix the server component, but we're having this issue where the paging, the query string to specify how many projects per page, and like page 1, page 2, page 3, isn't working quite right. Right now it just returns all projects all the time, which seems like it's a relatively simple problem to fix, but it's a matter of finding where that fix needs to be applied. We're pretty sure that it's some kind of missing equality operator or something like that. Like wherever it is, it's going to be a simple fix, but it's probably just sneaky. So that's kind of our key holdup on getting Project Browser kind of more officially supported, is just fixing the paging on that.
Have we had a discussion based on the security issues of self-installing modules? Not only with the fact that the websites are then going to be uploading their own PHP, but then if all of the Backdrop websites are going through one project server, that's a single point of failure and exploitation, that if we don't secure that server well enough, they could theoretically compromise every Backdrop site that uses the automatic project browser.
Yep. So it's interesting because the security concern is actually identical to our situation today, because Backdrop and 777 and 888 for that matter all use essentially the same mechanism for installing projects. So right now you can install modules and themes into a Drupal 7 website, and you've always been able to do that for the entire Drupal 7 release through the user interface. So the security concern has not changed since Drupal 7 was released. The only thing that we're doing is we're making it so that that feature is actually useful by adding a browser that provides the URLs for you and then just puts that into the existing mechanism for downloading and installing the software. So the downloading and downloading and installing is old. It's just the browsing that is new. But I totally agree that it's going to be a much bigger problem because nobody uses that functionality now because it's too arcane to just like copy and paste a URL from someplace and paste it in and then say, install. It's just I mean, the mishmash of users who would want to use an in-browser installer versus users who would want an in-browser installer and can also copy and paste a URL that they know is legitimate. Like, it totally negates the entire purpose of it almost. However, I totally agree about, like, if that single server were to go down or something like that, or to start providing spoofed URLs, we would definitely have some issues. The archives themselves are all hosted on GitHub, so we do have at least that peace of mind that if GitHub were compromised, everybody would have a lot of problems.
Okay, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, really great to think about, and I totally agree. Okay, next item on the agenda is Drush for Backdrop. Drush for Backdrop is our longest-standing infrastructure issue. We've been talking about it basically since day one of Backdrop. There's some great stuff happening in Drush for Backdrop land. We have a working prototype of Drush for Backdrop. It currently is living under my personal repository, but in the future we hope to move that into the contrib group, and with enough success that may actually be moved into core. Although, since we have Mike here with us, I know Mike's also been advocating for having a separate, like, Backdrop-specific command line tool, which I've always been also kind of in favor of. However, for the short term, for the familiarity of the Drupal audience, I do think that supporting Drush would be a great first step for us.
Yeah, our own thing definitely seems like a 2.0 issue.
Yeah, and I think it would be that if we included a command line tools within Backdrop core itself, then that would probably be a thing in the future. But yeah, there's some convenience with the way Drush works right now that it's kind of just like always available, and you can use it outside of a Drupal installation to like download Drupal itself. But really, beyond downloading Drupal and installing Drupal without Drupal yet existing, it really kind of has limited usefulness. So, but yeah,
I think where it's going to be really valuable is for people who are working on both Drupal and Backdrop sites at the same time. And I have a feeling that overlap will continue to happen for a number of years because Drupal 7 is going to be around for a really long time. And if our urgent goals are like, well, people building new sites will build them on Backdrop, but people maintaining old sites have no reason to move off Drupal 7 until there's a reason to move off Drupal 7. And so they're going to be dealing with, like, all day long being like, this is a Backdrop site, this is a Drupal site, and having to, like, rewire their brains to use different commands on one versus the other is going to take a little while. And so I think if we could make it, you still type Drush, but maybe you can't use, like, Drush config update or whatever on one side or the other, it'll help that learning process of moving from one to another. And sure, when Backdrop 2 comes out, maybe we'll know, like, during the day I spend 90% of my time on Backdrop and only 10% on Drupal. Like, it becomes less painful to make a change and not have to keep changing back and forth. But right now, I think the majority of people are still spending the majority of time on Drupal and using Drush the majority of the time. And so if we're like, well, if you have to use Brush, then it wouldn't be quite as easy.
Yeah. So in the short term, at least, we're going to continue making Drush work with Backdrop because it's definitely the win that is closest at hand, and our prototype is actually really close to functioning in a useful way. Like you can already, once you have added the Drush extension to your Drush installation or to your local user profile, then if you switch to a Backdrop installation, Drush just recognizes Backdrop. And the commands that you are used to using just work. So you can use drush updb, drush cc, drush ccl, drush cron, drush sql connect. All of those things work right now. Some things that are going to take a lot more effort, though, drush dl, drush up, like drush up a module. Those things are a lot more elaborate because they require integration with project module, and there's a lot of very specific code. Oh, and drush install. The install thing in drush is crazy. It like copies out like hundreds of lines of code out of core and puts it into drush, and so of course the installation process isn't quite identical between Backdrop and Drupal, so we'd have to copy and paste another big chunk of core out. It's just not really, yeah. Anyway, we have something that works right now. It's kind of an MVP of Drush, but as time goes on, hopefully that'll get more polished, and we'll be able to do more of the commands that are available in Drupal in Backdrop as well.
Do we have a meta ticket open for Drush, like just listing out all the commands that are supported and which ones have to be built?
We should use that same issue 47. To talk about testing out the prototype and which commands should be used and things like that. The prototype itself says which commands are supported, and there's only like a half dozen of them, and their children. So if there's specific ones that you think that we should support, then let's talk about it in that issue 47, which is the same issue that we've been discussing everything else Drush related.
Okay, but at some point we're probably all the different commands that we want to implement would have entirely sort of different issues. So at some point we should probably break it off into separate, smaller things once we get the Drush core functionality working.
Yeah, I totally agree. We could do a couple things there. We could file issues against the repository that Backdrop, or that the Drush integration is currently in, which right now it's in a personal repository. But I'll transfer that once it becomes more stable to the contrib repository, and I think issues come with the repository. So if you just want to start filing issues against the prototype repository, then when that gets transferred into the contrib group, they'll get carried over. So maybe making individual issues against the prototype might be a good idea in the meantime as well. Oh, so by the way, the prototype, I've been saying it, but I haven't actually given the URL, is github.com/quicksketch/backdrop-drush. But if you just visit github.com/quicksketch, you'll see Backdrop Drush in the list of repositories there. Okay, anything else, Mike?
Not for me at the moment.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, so the flagship website, backdropcms.org. There's been a couple of things that we've been working on that we would love to see happen in the near future. One thing that we did recently is that we added pages for modules, themes, and layouts, but there's an issue to follow up to add a bunch more functionality to those pages. The issue is issue 95 that talks about the project search pages on backdropcms.org. The big thing right now is that there's no filters or sorting criteria on those pages. In particular, you can't sort by project usage. And so some of that ties back into getting that number crunching script working. But other things are just implementation, theming, requirements.
There's not a lot of theming we can do without a ton more development because we don't have the data we need to theme. Like there's no views support for like links to GitHub, so we can't put those on the pages and stuff. So all of the stuff that's in the design needs to have development done before we can theme it. There's no data there to actually theme.
Yeah. Actually, Jim, why don't you take this section? You're familiar with all of these things more than I am.
Sure. So yeah, if we have anyone who wants to put any development time into backdropcms.org, we have beautiful designs. We just can't implement them yet because even though we have data in the database, there's no way to get it out and display it on a node. So we need to either like put it into the node view, or we need to expose it to views because we have places like our listing pages right now are views. So if anyone wants to write views integration, and that's everyone's favorite thing, we definitely could use some of that for our project module magic. What we're also working on right now is allowing people the ability to log in to the backdropcms.org website, which we're hoping to open up on January 1st. And so in order to get that done, we've decided to look at all the information we want to collect from people, and we've done a cursory setup of most of the profile fields that we want to collect on backdropcms.org. So if anyone wants to give that a test for us, let us know. We can create an account. You can log in and start playing with it. Let us know if there's anything you think we missed that's important to track, or if there's anything we are tracking that we shouldn't be tracking. It'd be great to get some feedback on that. There's 3 things that we need to either port modules for or install modules for, and that is the social media link. So if you want to put your Twitter or Facebook or whatever on there, we can add that. The country you live in and the languages you speak. Those 2 things are coming soon. Everything else is up there now. We've turned over these lists of we want to collect from people to our designer, Darius, and we're supposed to get a working profile page designed by the 7th of December so we can have it implemented by the 1st. If that ends up not getting implemented in time, we'll probably still start collecting information and then make it pretty later on the 1st. And then shortly after that, we're going to do a single sign-on with GitHub so that people can link their GitHub accounts to their Backdrop accounts, or not have to create a Backdrop account in the first place if they don't want to. And then we can do things like allow people access to edit projects they maintain. I don't know that there's any significant reason to do that right now, but if we wanted to like let people change photos and stuff without having to commit previews to GitHub, we could probably figure out a way to do that. So it is in our roadmap to figure out why and how and what, but it's just not happening yet. And then after people start logging in and creating accounts, we'll also be able to do things like add a mentor field. Right now, it's kind of silly to let people add mentors if the mentors don't have accounts on the website yet, but we are planning on adding that. That's something I really like on Drupal.org. And then we also want to let people add showcases to our showcase site. So once we get the user profiles up and running, we will switch over to getting showcases done. That's something that I find all the time when people are like, what sites are running Backdrop? And I'm like, it would be great if you had a place where you could point them and say, here's a bunch of sites that are running Backdrop. So we'll get that on after the user login. There's a bunch of other stuff we want to do on our main website too, a service provider listing, an event calendar, jobs boards, and a bunch of other stuff too, like getting a blog up and running where we can talk about the stuff that's going on with Backdrop. I think that would really help our marketing. Maybe I should put that in this list as well. Blog. Yeah, just, there's going to be plenty of needs evolving over time. So website, our website is a work in progress. We'll also try and see if maybe we need some kind of forum, something else like that. All right, so Backdrop CMS itself.
So I was just going to say one thing that I'd love to see more of, and Radar Health doing it, is like there's a section of enjoy tons of other improvements, including, and then we list out all the things that we've improved. If we could, is there a section on the site that actually sort of breaks those out and actually describes the individual improvements? Like,
I don't think so.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because I keep trying to describe how Backdrop has made a bunch of improvements on Drupal 7. Like, people get that it's a fork of Drupal 7. They're like, oh, okay, Drupal, and like you added views and stuff like that. But I think the thing we need to do sell people on who are coming from Drupal is that we're making changes to core, and those changes make sense, and you're actually, if you leave using Drupal 7 and join Backdrop because we have made all these different improvements. So yeah, seems important.
Yeah,
that'd be great. I don't know where those would live. Should we put those in the just like linked off the homepage for every one of those bullet lists? We'd have like a little page that talks about that improvement.
Yeah, I'd say if we just have one page with everything on it, and then those little bullet points can link with just with just anchors down to the proper section, that would be probably a good solution for the moment.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to keep making changes between Drupal and Backdrop. So, I mean, I think we might want to think about some sort of change/decision log that better helps people visualize the difference between the two platforms, and to sort of show how the project's evolving over time and how things are changing with Drupal, like between Drupal 7 and Backdrop. So,
Okay.
but yeah, but I'm happy to help work on that if needed.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, Mike. Yeah, if you want to just write up, are you thinking just writing up copy for the time being? Because we probably need some visualizations, not visualizations, illustrations. You know, something to spruce it up a little bit. But
yeah, I think we need like screenshots of some of these things.
Oh yeah.
But just yeah. Because a lot of the stuff here is just sort of like, oh look, like, you know, the layout thing. We should probably have a couple screenshots of, you know, the layout interface.
Right. Because yeah, right now it's got like, you know, 3 words that say layouts. They're here, and it's just like, but that's like an enormous like game changer for Drupal development.
Ideally, we could, if we wanted to do a series of short videos, like, you know, hey, let's look at the new layout thing. It's different from Drupal, and just run through it in like just a minute or two. So if I have a page with a bunch of these videos, so people can just watch really short videos. I'm like, oh, this is how it works now, just to get Drupal people up to speed with what changes have been made so far.
Yep. Cool. Let's see. What's next on the agenda?
Sorry, I'm taking notes on all of Mike's great ideas in the issue queue.
Okay, excellent. I'll take it from here. Okay, so Backdrop CMS, the actual software itself, what's going on? So our next release is going to be Backdrop 1.2.3, the next bug fix release that just includes minor improvements. There is an issue, or there's a milestone for version 1.2.3 that there are currently about 7 issues that are assigned for being in the next release that we would love to get in. One of which, though, is a little misleading because it's porting relevant issues from Drupal 7.40 into Backdrop, and there are 72 sub-issues in there. Every time a new version of Drupal comes out, we make sure that we cross-port every applicable fix from Drupal 7 into Backdrop as well. And so there's a number of those since Drupal 7.40 came out that have not yet been patched or ported over. That's issue 1331 in the Backdrop CMS issue queue. Those are great issues for novice developers as well as experienced developers, because really there's a wide range of how complicated fixes can be in Drupal 7. And so a lot of them are simple, like you just reapply the same patch from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, and it works exactly. But then at other times, you need to apply those patches and then make Backdrop-specific changes. If nothing else, like just make sure that you're not reintroducing calls to, you know, Drupal add CSS, which is now called Backdrop add CSS, and so on. But that would be great to get some progress rolling on that. We don't have a release date for Backdrop 1.2.3. It's really just kind of whenever there's a significant number of fixes that make having the release worthwhile, then we will push out that release. And we don't need to get all of those cross-ports from 7.40 over. We can obviously wait till the next minor release or next bug fix release to include those. The next item that I have out here is PHP 7 support. Why? Because PHP 7 came out today. It came out like an hour ago. How exciting is that? Yay PHP! Congratulations. We're so happy to have our favorite programming language have a new major version like this. And so, so PHP 7 is out, and probably for us lowly backdrop developers, our favorite feature of PHP probably isn't going to be the new language features because we have a high emphasis on compatibility, so we won't be using very many new language features for a while. But the thing everybody will love is that PHP 7 is a lot faster than previous versions of PHP. They advertise up to twice as fast as PHP 5.6, which is always a great thing. And so we would like to get Backdrop's support for PHP 7 totally 100%. And we're actually really close to that. We have an issue for tracking PHP 7 support. It's 1386, and we've been working this week on making Backdrop fully PHP 7 compatible. It's actually already, like, even if you used it today, you would have very few problems with PHP 7 and Backdrop. But there's a couple of things that really simple fixes that really get us to like 99%. And then there's just one or two minor issues that are the last little bit. But what we're trying to do in that issue, 1386, is not only make Backdrop PHP 7 compatible, but we're also enabling Travis CI testing of PHP 7, which means our entire test suite will run simultaneously against our minimum PHP version, which is PHP 5.3, and the latest PHP version, which is PHP 7. And so every time we submit a pull request, we'll have that tested against both versions. And in theory, if we really wanted to, we could add 5.4 and 5.5 also. But there's a certain amount of like responsibility towards like not totally crippling Travis CI with a bunch of expensive Backdrop tests that I feel like for now, like just getting 5.3 and 7, doing both of those would be a great idea. So there's only two lingering issues. There's some issue with admin bar, not deleting a link, and then there's some GD image rotation issues. But those two things are like the last two minor little issues before we have 100% test coverage, or I shouldn't say that, 100% tests passing on both versions of PHP. So that's really exciting. I'm excited. Let's see. The next minor version of Backdrop 1.3.0, we're hoping to make that the user experience release, which is basically we don't have any big flashy headline features like date or path auto like we did in previous releases of new major expansions of functionality. Instead, we're trying to polish the functionality we already have. And in particular, the areas that need the most effort are kind of like all of the major site building tools. Layouts is issue 345. More administration views, which is 1101. The field UI, which is issue 779. And then smaller items like making sure that we use edit and configure consistently. The WYSIWYG follow-ups, I'm sorry, rich text editor follow-ups. All of the links for these are all in the agenda. But you can also find a lot of UX issues in the issue queue by doing a search for open square bracket UX close square bracket, and there's like almost 100 issues that are all UX related that it would be great to put some focus on that because that's where we're trying to make improvements for the next release. How we are on status on each of those, I feel like we're not making a whole lot of code progress at this point on most of these major items.
There's a bunch of issues with pull requests that are just sitting there. And then there's a bunch of issues that are also tagged novice. So if you wanted something that could be a quick, easy improvement, that could be a good place to jump in. I sometimes grab novice issues when I don't have a lot of hours to throw in, but I'm like, oh, I want to make some kind of headway, so I'll grab a novice issue and file a pull request. But then those pull requests sit there waiting to be reviewed. So you can either jump in and file pull requests, or you could review pull requests, which is also super helpful for us. at least give it a cursory look and say, code syntax is wrong or tests are failing, needs work. And then that way the people who worked on them will get notified that they need to come back and do some more work.
Yeah, that's true. I'm totally being a bottleneck, which is something we wanted to avoid and want to avoid in the future. It's kind of the review bottleneck. And so if people can review each other's work rather than just having the committer, which is right now it's just myself, reviewing everything, then cross-reviewing of pull requests would be super helpful. We are also planning in the future, like our management structure, we specifically organized it so that we could, and we definitely do want more members both of the guiding council, the PMC, and have a large number of committers. But we're working on kind of getting, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of candidates in our current community that we're just like, we're waiting for the right time to really get more contributors, kind of glean them from our community, because we have great people in our community already. It's just we need to make sure that they're ready for managing the GitHub workflow and enforcing all of the statutes, I guess. I'm trying to think of what it is, like the standards that we have put in place. Let's see. Are there any other major UX things I should mention in 1.3? Like, there's just a lot of really broad items here.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those are metas, like the layouts follow-up, where some of them are user experience things, some of them are new features. But as much as we can get done, we can. I think things like the project browser are also going to be significant user experience improvements, and I know that there's a lot of momentum around that. So if we could get that unblocked, I don't know if that'll get done in time, but it would be really cool if it did. Yeah, just generally, like, as you guys are using the tool, you'll run into user experience issues. I run into them all the time, and then I'm like, this is frustrating. And I'm like, wait, we can fix this. Create an issue. And I think, like, the more of those things we can get done will improve that experience. People going, this is frustrating, like, that won't happen anymore. And that makes a better product. That makes for a better first impression for people. It makes for a better long-term impression. People have to work with the software. So yeah, just every little change helps.
Cool. All right.
I'd say one big outstanding thing we might want to consider for maybe not strictly UX, but I think the whole coming up with a new base theme, default base theme for Backdrop is kind of a big, at least look and feel issue that we probably want to address at some point soon.
Yeah, that's what Andy just said too. Like, how do we what's our process for that? We actually just talked about this a little bit in the design meeting as well, where Nate was looking through the issue queue, like, where's the issue for adding a new theme to core? And then he was like, oh, there isn't an issue. And I think it's because we needed something more specific than that. Like,
there's an issue. We were talking about it this past week in an issue. So there is an issue. I'm not sure if it's a good issue, but there is a issue.
Well, what we decided on half an hour ago, we can use your feedback on this too, is that it would be great if the issue was very specifically like put X theme in core. And then we could evaluate that theme and figure out if it's a candidate for core, and if not, why not, so that we can choose another theme that might be a good candidate for core, or if it needs work, like what are the things we need to work on, so we can actually get some actionable items other than just saying, we want a new theme in core, and then like not moving towards that.
I mean, the thing that I was saying in the issue that I did was basically, rather than, yes, we could do that, but it'd also be good to get a list of what features we want the default theme to have, like what's important to us and stuff like that, and just get a general agreement on how we're evaluating whether or not it should be the default theme, so we can actually sort of have something to evaluate things on.
Yeah. That'd be great too. Can you find that issue and throw it into the chat, or just tell us what number it is, or email it or something?
Oh, here it is.
I will.
Oh, you found it.
I found it. It's 1361.
Okay.
Yep, and Mike goes in there, so that looks like that's probably it. Hey, how about that? Okay, I'm gonna put this into the agenda. All I'm gonna put this into 1.4
Okay.
because I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. I mean, it's not gonna happen the next month.
Yeah. I also think like we shouldn't replace Bartik because that's the theme people are going to need if they're porting in 1.0. But we can add new theme in 1.0, and then if we had to remove Bartik in 2, we could. But we can definitely switch the default.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So 1361, yeah, a new front-end theme has long been on our minds, honestly. It's just that there's a lot of things that need to come with that. And obviously the first thing of which is, I mean, maybe not the first thing, but it needs a, yeah, that obviously requires a designer's hand.
And then there's a question of whether we should use something that uses like a bootstrap grid or something like that, and whether we should be using other more complicated things, like whether it should be Sass, or like, do we want our core theme to be Sass, or do we want it to be simpler than that? So, wow.
Yeah, and I think we've already kind of went down the Sass path at the beginning, and we decided we didn't want it in Sass because we wanted our code to be accessible to the lowest common denominator. So these are people that use CSS but don't know Sass, and then we'll leave Sass for more sophisticated people who are going to be working in Contrib. That said, I think there's room to reevaluate that, especially if we do end up using something like Bootstrap, where it's like you can have compiled files and non-compiled versions. I think Drupal 8 might have done something similar, or at least had a similar conversation. I don't know where they landed.
I mean, if someone downloads the theme and they have the option of using Sass, or they could just edit the CSS directly, and so it's not like a requirement that people use Sass if they download a theme that has it in it.
Yeah, although it is a requirement that our developers who are developing the theme use Sass, obviously. Like if they make a change in the future, like our own maintenance will definitely need to support it.
And also the quality of the CSS that comes out of something that's generated from Sass is significantly different than something that was handcrafted by a human being. And the way it's organized and stuff should also be taken into consideration. Now, not to say that the quality of the CSS that's in core right now is any good, but, or of any real world site that always ends up not what you intended. But yeah, I definitely think we can have the conversation again. Just the last time we had it, we decided let's just leave it in CSS and not have to worry about it. I also think it would be great if we could use something like Bootstrap. The grid system is a little weird because the grid system doesn't have anything to do with the theme, right? That would be the layouts. But I think that if we do go with something like Bootstrap in the theme, we might want to go with something like Bootstrap grid system in the layout so that we can match the two together. But that would definitely be a 2.0 thing, so it would require like rewriting classes and CSS for our layout system. So lots of interesting puzzle pieces.
Yeah, although if we want to talk about new core themes, we do have the design meetings, which was today, unfortunately, before this meeting. But every 2 weeks we have another design meeting, and that would be the best time to talk about it because it's always on that agenda to talk about a new front end theme.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll add this there too.
Okay. So other items in, so longer term, May 15th, 2016 is the slated release date for 1.4.0, which is 4 months after January 15th. So per our rolling release cycle, every 4 months we have a new release. So 1.4.0 will be out in May, and we don't have firm ideas, or firm commitments, I should say, to any features in 1.4.0, but we've got some pretty good ideas of things that we would like to see. In particular, references module is kind of really high on our list. That we have ports of node reference and user reference modules that are available for Backdrop, but the entity reference module has not been fully ported to Backdrop, but is kind of the most likely thing that we would like to see in core. However, as entity reference is written now is not what we would like to see, but the capabilities that it provides is...
Mike's done some work on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I started some work on it, haven't had the chance to make much headway. Perhaps hopefully after January 1st, like a project that Jen roped me into has a January 1st deadline that I'm going to be stretched on. But after that, hopefully I'll be able to work on it.
Awesome. Well, anyway, that's the #1 feature that we'd love to see in Backdrop 1.4.0. Hopefully, Core's better entity API really makes it so that there isn't so much abstraction necessary in whatever references module we come up with, because things like getting past an object and getting its ID or getting its entity type or getting its bundle is not they're all just now methods onto the objects that are passed in. And so we have these abilities that we didn't have in Drupal 7 that entity reference module had to do a bunch of crazy bending over backwards and weird abstractions in order to get that sort of information. And we're hoping that the Backdrop implementation can be quite a bit simpler because we can accommodate Core to the needs of the references module if necessary. And hopefully it should already be pretty accommodating.
Yeah, the actual referencing is not actually a big deal with the entity reference module and stuff like that. It's all of the custom fields that you want to be able to filter by, and then just basically the drop down that lets you select the person, the autocomplete, or whatever selection process. So basically sort of abstracting all that into a common thing would be interesting.
Gotcha. So that's #1 feature for 1.4. We also had been thinking about redirect module, potentially moving that into Core, whether that's a separate module or part of path module. Like, we're not totally clear on that yet. But some effort into making the redirect module's functionality available in Core. And then we just added this front-end theme. So previously, references and redirect were kind of our big items. Front-end theme, that's like as with all things, like all these things are, if they don't get done, then they just get pushed into the next release. But yeah, any or all would make an awesome release for 1.4. Okay, let's see. That's not all, though. There's always just the regular constant improvement to Backdrop. In particular, I mentioned earlier the UX issues that are square bracket, UX close square bracket. You can find those on GitHub. We also have a whole category of issues called developer experience, which are square bracket DX close square bracket. Both of those are great places to start if you're just getting into Backdrop and looking at I just want to do something to Backdrop Core. Those kinds of things can be great because they're low pressure, no kind of deadline, just whenever we can get to it kind of fixes. So that can be great starting points as well. Sprints every Thursday. Today we have, after the meeting, we have like code review, coding parties. We generally hang out in Pound Backdrop in IRC and in the GitHub issue queue. But we've also started using Gitter, which is this address correct, Jen? Gitter IM/backdrop.
Backdrop / well, that works, but it doesn't take you to the right one. It's
I guess
there's two of them. That's one of the problems. There's two. There's Backdrop and Backdrop issues, and it seems like there's no sense of when you would post into one or the other. So maybe you want to actually delete one.
Yeah, the problem is that Gitter gives you one chat for every repository, and anyone who's a member of either repository can create one. So Backdrop Issues is a public repository, so it's a public chat channel. Backdrop, whatever the other one, was just, I think, for anyone who's a member of Backdrop, the repository. So it's private. So I tried to delete it, but then it got recreated, so I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like the previous Backdrop one it's not there, at least if you visit Gitter IM/backdrop. There's just Backdrop Issues now. So.
And there's also Backdrop Contrib, just to make things more confusing.
Well, anyway, we're trying it out. So I would say for sure the most consistent and reliable thing is the issue queue. It's our primary means of communication, and I would recommend participating there if nowhere else. We also have a Reddit, reddit.com/r/backdrop. If you're interested in sharing links around the web and discussing them with other Backdrop community members, that's a good way to go. Let's see, upcoming events. Let's see.
Thursday. Well, okay, tonight there is an Oakland Tech Mixer that Nate's going to be going to. And then next Thursday, we're doing a mini sprint with one of the core committers from Civi CRM to do a little kind of show and tell of both products, and then try and sit down, fork Civi, and see if we can get it running on Backdrop. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Nate and I, at the Nonprofit Developer Summit we were at last week, the number one question we got was, does it work with Civi? And we're like, well, in theory, that should be possible. We have plans to make it work with Civi, but we haven't tried it. So we want to sit down and try it and actually get that running. Another reason is that Backdrop, the Backdrop Foundation might actually have a really good use case for using Civi. And if we start eating our own dog food using Backdrop and Civi together, we'll actually know how good the integration is working and making sure that we're doing things in ways that our community can benefit from as well. So I think having a little powwow with the Civi folks next Thursday is going to be great in terms of moving that project forward for Backdrop. So I think that'll also be really valuable to our intended target audience, which is supposed to be nonprofits because they often use Civi. And I also heard that Civi is coming out with a whole bunch of new user experience improvements as well, that I got to see some designs at the summit that make it look a lot slicker. And so I'm looking forward to getting my hands on those too. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, also speaking of events, I'm not sure if this is in the agenda or not. But we have officially confirmed a Backdrop training again at Sandcamp this year. We're currently scheduled for a half day on Thursday, but I think they're trying to get us a full day on Thursday, but it'll depend on how many other trainings they get and signups and all that stuff. So if you live near San Diego or want to visit San Diego in February, you can do a Backdrop training. Or if it's one of you guys, you could teach a Backdrop training.
Okay, let's see. So other things, we have an iCal feed of the Backdrop meetings, which I feel like I need to get updated because I can never remember which weeks are design meetings and which ones aren't. Yeah, okay. So you can find that link in the agenda. Let's see. There's also reusable presentations that you can use that are from the Backdrop Ops repository, Backdrop Ops/slides. And right now there are two presentations in there, a general introduction to Backdrop and why it exists, and there's a presentation on the layout system. And as we have new presentations, it would be great if contributors would file pull requests to add those presentations into that slide deck. That hopefully should be like reusable presentations that people could use if they ever found themselves caught in a situation where they wanted to talk about Backdrop to an unsuspecting audience. Or maybe an unsuspecting presenter to an anticipating audience, who knows. Let's see. Jen already talked about the t-shirts and hoodies that we have available. You can get them at backdropcms.org/contribute. For small donations, you can get an awesome white t-shirt or an awesome gray hoodie. But in this section, under publicity, I also added in the section for marketing because we had some really amazing discussion this past week around marketing strategy that we could pursue for Backdrop. Our favorite primate GitHub user, Citybun, wrote up this epic how to market Backdrop post that all had just like tons of great ideas. And some of them are really pretty simple. One of the things I liked that he suggested, Jen mentioned that we should expand the blog section. That's a good point. We definitely should do that, especially as we have new news that we would like to announce to people. But besides expanding our own blog section, we should try to author posts on other existing blogs. And so he suggested the idea of using guest posts where we could, we being the Backdrop community, could post to other people's blogs that frequently that get a lot of traffic that that allow other people to basically say, oh, this post is from this person over here, and then we can write up a post on somebody else's blog, and that can generate a lot of traffic, a lot of new interest. He's specifically pointed out the fact that the Lullabot articles on Backdrop, which were written by other Lullabots, not by myself, were the primary drivers for finding Backdrop for him in the first place, which is pretty cool. Let's see. We should highlight the videos more, specifically like the videos we're making like right now. the weekly videos, we should highlight them more on the website to really drive home the personal factor of like there are people behind this project and they're working on it right now. And if we put like the latest video on the website and a link to all of the other ones, right now we link to the YouTube channel, which is a start. But if we actually just put a video of like, here's what happened this week on the website somewhere, then that would really make people associate stronger with Backdrop and see what we're doing. Speaking of the meetings, better titles and descriptions for each YouTube meeting. Right now we just have, weekly meeting dates, and we don't put descriptions on them. Like we should put in descriptions of what we talk about and what's unique about each meeting in the descriptions, and title them appropriately, saying like what the topic is for this particular week, which is a little bit tough because we talk about the same things every week, but there's always minor variations. And then also use analytics on backdropcms.org, which I think we are. Do we have Google Analytics installed on there, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that too.
And if we took a look at that, then we could see where people are coming from. Like if they're coming from other people's blogs, like the Lullabot blog, for example, or if there's other places that we're not aware of that we're getting a lot of traffic from those places, then we can focus back onto those places to kind of reinforce the cycle and generate more traffic. So anyway, there's more though. Apparently, Monkey is in marketing. At least that's what Cinnabon said. So, and I think it backed it up really strongly there. So there's a lot of really great ideas in there. It's in the backdropcms.org issue queue, issue 112. And there's a link to it in the agenda, of course. Jen, are you making sub-issues for all of these?
Yeah, there are sub-issues for all of these. I'm just linking them in the agenda here.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so lots of great marketing opportunities and lots of great ideas. And I think the thing about marketing is that Jen and I and a lot of other developers don't consider themselves marketers, but I think if we're just told really obvious things like, oh, you should put a description in your YouTube videos, like it seems kind of like a no-brainer that it shouldn't take a whole lot more work. Hey, something else that's really exciting publicity-wise. You guys will hear it here first because we're kind of keeping the wraps on it on the Twitter until it actually is available for sale. But the first ever Backdrop book is off to the presses and will be available next week, which is really exciting. It's a book from A-Press. It's the same author and publisher, I should add, of Pro Drupal Developer or Pro Drupal Development. So Todd Tomlinson, he's been working in the background to make a series actually of Backdrop books, and he's released his first one or sent it to the printers. It's titled "Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop," which is which is awesome because that's our target audience, but it's also a little bit Yeah, I guess it's a little bit telling that that's our first ever book. But he's working on a second book, he's informed me, called Beginning Backdrop, which will be like an introduction to Backdrop from a complete newbie's point of view. But I think the first book being hey, you're familiar with Drupal, here's how to get familiar with Backdrop is a great first step, and I'm really thrilled to have Apress and Todd behind such an effort. Both really great track records as far as writing really great Drupal books, and so having that skill and publicity behind Backdrop is just a great boon to us. The link is in the agenda, but you can also just Google for Apress migrating from Drupal to Backdrop, and that will pull up the link. It'll be available for sale next week, and then once it's available for sale, then we'll start tweeting it out and things. But I think it would be great to save our big publicity push until after it was actually available, so that people will get excited and then immediately buy it or preview it or whatever. But it's best to make sure that stuff is available on Amazon before you have people take a look at it, because otherwise they might just look at it and say, oh, that's nice, not for sale yet, okay, and then never think about it again. So
Can I go back 1 second? I'm also really super thrilled about the book, by the way. I think that's going to be awesome. I want a copy. But back to marketing, I created a new tag on the GitHub issue queue for backdropcms.org specifically for marketing. So if we have people who have marketing skills and don't want to write code and want to grab tasks, all of the stuff that was mentioned in issue 121 or whatever has been split into a sub-issue and tagged with that marketing thing. So if you have people who like want to write blog posts or guest blogs somewhere else or update all our videos or any of that, pay attention to Google Analytics for us. These are all good, discrete jobs that we could outsource to people who are much better at them than we are. So definitely, if you're interested in one of those things, let us know there, and we can, give you whatever access you need to whatever tools we have that might help.
Okay, let's see. That's it for the agenda this week. We kind of ran quite long. That was almost an hour. But it's open discussion time. You guys have anything else that you think that we do not cover in these weekly meetings that we should add for regular discussion?
I think we should move the marketing section higher in the agenda.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense that it's at the end. I think I just tacked it on there.
Yeah, we feel like, oh, we should talk about marketing stuff. But now that we actually have active things that we should follow up on and be like, hey, have we launched any ads? I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like it might be good to like get an actual schedule of things where it's like starting in January or after 1.3 is released. This is the stuff we should focus on and then actually do it.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but
and some of them are actual tasks like that could be combined into the backdropcms.org agenda. Like we've got things like the blog, for example. You just added that today, but that was one of the marketing suggestions also. So
it's tagged.
Yeah, already done. Anything else, guys?
Nothing from here.
We use needs review tags and patch links. Maybe we could easily get RTBC more easily. Maybe we could get RTBC more easily. In particular, issue 899. Oh, yeah, this one. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good thought too, because we have a bunch of people who don't know what to do with a pull request, right? Because we came from this world of Drupal where everybody used patches. And there is like a dirty little secret of GitHub, whereas if you take your pull request and put .patch at the end of the URL, you get a patch. That's how I've been testing things. That's how I've been maintaining my client projects that include like patched whatever problems. But I think you're right. I think if we have an issue that needs testing, if we put a link to a patch in the comment, it's much more likely that someone will test it. And then once they test it, we can get that reviewed and tested by community status too. So that is a good idea. I think especially, the tags stuff is a little weird. Like it should be the pull request that needs review, but if people are looking in the issue queue, they won't see the pull request status. So then it's kind of hard. We've got to maintain both of them. We have an issue in our GitHub automation section that should make sure the tags on both of those stay in sync, but nobody's working on that, so it's not likely to happen soon. So yeah, I would say if you want to add tags to the issue that match the tags on the pull request and put a link in the issue for testing to a patch version of the pull request, that might get more activity. Yeah, we have a whole tag for GitHub automation that we can put that on the agenda, definitely. Okay.
Yeah, this looks really good. Actually, Jen, you said this was ready to go 28 days ago. Maybe we should mark it RTBC.
Did I not mark it RTBC?
No, you had a whole bunch of exclamation points in all capital hooray. But then left it needs review.
Oh my goodness. All right.
The test still failed. Oh. Well, there you go. Some weird test. Oh yeah. Is it one of those fluke ones?
Remove the test.
Remove the test.
Fix the test.
I honestly think I don't know. I wouldn't. Okay. I won't advocate publicly for removing the test, but we need to rewrite the test in a way that it doesn't fail, because yeah, some of those tests fail like 1 out of 5 times. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up because we're definitely stretching over an hour now. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate the constant help and support. And it's been a great couple of weeks for Backdrop, and we're hoping for more great weeks in the near future. So let's get ready for Backdrop 1.3 and make some progress on all those issues. So. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.